When a paralyzed girl entered the shelter, no one expected her to pick the most feared dog. The staff begged her to choose another, but she refused. Moments later, the dangerous German Shepherd did something so shocking it left her parents and the entire shelter in stunned silence. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The shelter was alive, with sound, barking, whining, the scrape of paws against metal cages. Volunteers moved quickly through the rows, trying to keep order, but the energy was restless. That morning, a family entered, quietly, drawing curious glances from the staff. At the center was a little girl in a wheelchair, her eyes wide with both wonder and determination. Her name was Lily, and though her legs no longer carried her, her spirit was unshaken. She had begged her parents for months to adopt a dog, believing a companion could fill the emptiness her condition often left. Her father pushed her chair forward gently, while her mother smiled nervously at the shelter workers. The staff welcomed them warmly, pointing out dogs known for their gentle temperaments. These are the perfect companions for children, one volunteer said kindly, but Lily barely glanced at them. Her attention was already drifting elsewhere. Lily's wheelchair rolled past, the wagging tails and eager eyes of dozens of friendly dogs. Golden retrievers pressed their noses against the bars. Spaniels barked happily for attention, and a husky pawed the cage door as if begging to be chosen. But Lily's gaze didn't linger on any of them. Her eyes were fixed on the very last kennel at the end of the row. The sign on its gate read in bold red letters, "Dangerous. Do not approach." Inside, a massive German Shepherd stood, stiff and silent. His ears were pinned back, his eyes sharp, and his growl low, enough to rumble through the corridor. Even from a distance, his presence sent shivers down the spine. "I want him," Lily said firmly, pointing toward the cage. Her father blinked in disbelief, and her mother gasped. A staff member quickly stepped forward, shaking their head. "Sweetheart, not that one. He's unpredictable, aggressive." But Lily didn't back down. She pressed her small hand to her lap, her voice steady. "He's the one." The corridor fell silent, the shelter staff exchanging uneasy glances. No one could understand why this fragile girl, confined to her chair, had chosen the dog everyone else feared. The shelter staff hesitated, whispering among themselves before finally unlocking the heavy latch on the kennel door. The German Shepherd stood rigid. Inside, hackles raised, teeth flashing, as a warning growl filled the air. One volunteer positioned themselves protectively in front of Lily, ready to wheel her back if things went wrong. But Lily didn't flinch. She leaned forward in her chair, her small hand extending toward the bars. Her parents' hearts pounded in their chests, but Lily's face remained calm, her voice soft. "Hi there," she whispered gently. "It's okay. I'm not afraid of you." The dog's growl deepened at first, his eyes locked on her fragile frame. Everyone held their breath, expecting a lunge. Yet, instead of snapping, The shepherd's posture shifted, his ears twitched. Forward, his breathing slowed, and the fierce snarl faded into silence. For a long, tense moment, nothing moved. Then, to everyone's astonishment, the dog lowered his head, pressing his nose against the bars where Lily's tiny hand rested. Gasps filled the corridor. The dangerous dog, untouchable for months, was letting her touch him. In that instant it was clear. Lily had reached him in a way no one else could. The room was silent, every eye locked on the girl. And the German shepherd, Lily's fingers brushed against his fur through the bars, and instead of snapping, the dog leaned closer. His eyes, once sharp with suspicion, softened with something no one expected. Trust. A volunteer whispered in disbelief. He's never let anyone near him. Her father stepped forward anxiously, ready to pull Lily's hand away, but the shepherd's tail gave the slightest wag. It was subtle, hesitant, but enough to bring tears to her mother's eyes. Lily smiled, her voice a gentle melody. See, he's not bad. He just needed someone to believe in him. The dog pressed harder against the cage, a low whine escaping his throat, as though pleading not to be left alone again. The staff exchanged astonished glances. For months, they had struggled to handle this dog, labeling him dangerous. Yet, here he was, calm beneath the touch of a fragile little girl. In that moment, the bond between them was undeniable. Something deeper than fear, something even love itself couldn't explain. Bringing the German shepherd home was not easy. The moment he stepped out of the car, his ears shot up and his body tensed as if the world outside the shelter was just as threatening. He paced the living room endlessly, growling at the sound of the refrigerator humming, barking at shadows on the wall. Lily's parents exchanged worried glances. Maybe this was a mistake, her mother whispered, clutching her husband's arm. But Lily, seated in her wheelchair, shook her head firmly. He just doesn't know. He's safe yet. Her voice carried a confidence beyond her years. That night, the dog refused to lie down. He sat guard by the window, alert to every rustle outside. At one point he snarled at Lily's father when he tried to approach, sending a shiver through the house. But Lily rolled her chair forward, slowly, placing her hand gently on the shepherd's paw. Instantly his growl faded, his chest rose and fell, his muscles relaxing as he lowered his head. Beside her, the family watched in stunned silence as their daughter soothed the dog no one else could calm. She wasn't afraid of him, and somehow he knew it. It was past midnight when the test came. The house was still, the only sound, the ticking of the old clock in the hallway. Lily was asleep in her room, her wheelchair parked neatly by her bed. The German shepherd, restless as always, lay curled beside her, his ears twitching at every creak. Then a sharp noise shattered the silence. The back door rattled, followed by the unmistakable sound of it being forced open. The shepherd's head shot up, his body rigid. Within seconds, he was on his feet, teeth bared, a growl rumbling like thunder from his chest. A masked figure slipped into the kitchen, moving quickly through the shadows. But before he could take another step, the dangerous dog lunged His bark exploded through the house loud and furious, shaking the intruder to his core. The man stumbled back as the shepherd blocked the hallway, standing firmly between Lily's room and the threat. The noise woke Lily's parents, who rushed out just in time to see the intruder flee. Terrified, the shepherd stood panting, his body trembling with adrenaline, but his eyes never left Lily's door. He had chosen his duty, and he had passed the test. News of the break-in spread quickly. Neighbors who had once shaken their heads at the family's choice now stood in awe. The dog they had whispered about, the one labeled too dangerous, too unpredictable, had protected the most vulnerable member of the house. Without hesitation, the shelter staff came to see for themselves, half expecting the story to be exaggerated. But when they stepped through the doorway and watched the German shepherd lying calmly at Lily's side, their doubts melted away. His massive frame was curled protectively near her wheelchair, his head resting peacefully on her lap. Lily beamed with pride, stroking his fur. "He's not dangerous," she said softly, her voice steady but full of warmth. "He just needed someone to see him differently." The shepherd's tail thumped once against the floor as though agreeing with her. From that day forward, the German shepherd was no longer the shelter's dangerous dog. He was Lily's protector, her shadow, her constant companion. Wherever her wheelchair rolled, he walked proudly beside her, his once fierce eyes now filled with gentleness.